The sun was high, burning against my skin, and the sand clung to me like it wanted me gone too. My sister, Olivia, grinned wickedly as she pressed down another pile of sand over my chest, her hands quick and deliberate, the grains tightening around me like a prison. She had convinced me earlier to play along, saying it would be fun, but the way her eyes gleamed told me this was no game. "Hold still," she sneered, shoving sand across my shoulders. "Trash like you belongs under dirt." I tried to laugh it off at first, thinking she was just being cruel in her usual way, but when I tried to move, the weight pressed hard. My ribs strained and panic began to curl in my stomach. I looked over at Dad sitting a few feet away in his beach chair, sunglasses on, a drink in hand. He saw me struggling, my arms half buried, my chest heaving. Instead of helping, he smirked, leaned back, and spat out words that sliced deeper than the sun ever could. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments, from where are you watching this video?" "Stay down where worms belong," he said flatly, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Don't embarrass the family by crawling up here again." The beachgoers who glanced over thought it was a joke. Some even chuckled. My heart pounded. I tried to wiggle free, but Olivia pressed her foot against the sand on top of me, grinding it down. "Look at her squirm," Olivia taunted, crouching low with her long hair falling across her face. "You're pathetic. Even the sand doesn't want you." "Dad!" I gasped, my throat raw from the heat. "Please!" "Don't ruin your sister's day," he snapped. "You always have to steal attention. Just stay there. You look better buried." The words hit harder than the sand. Mom, who was adjusting Olivia's beach towel, laughed without even glancing at me. "Leave her. Maybe she'll learn to shut up if the world finally covers her." I felt my breath shorten. The grains pressed into my lips, into my hair, sticking against the sweat rolling down my temples. My chest heaved, but the weight made it harder with each inhale. Olivia dug in with both hands now, laughing as she piled more over my neck. "You're nothing," she whispered, "and today everyone sees it." The waves crashed faintly in the background. Kids screamed happily nearby, and still no one came. They all looked away because it was easier to ignore the girl who didn't belong. I clenched my fists beneath the sand, nails biting into my palms, fury crawling through me stronger than the suffocation. I realized then, it wasn't just a prank. It was a message. They wanted me gone. They wanted me erased. And right there, buried in the sand while the people who should have protected me laughed, I made myself a promise. If they wanted me to stay down, I'd rise higher than they could ever imagine. If they thought I belonged with worms, I'd make sure they lived to choke on the dirt themselves. I stopped begging. I stopped struggling. My silence made Olivia pause, glancing down at me suspiciously. Dad muttered, "Finally," as if my quietness pleased him. But in my head, I was no longer their victim. I was already sharpening the blade of what would come next. Because this moment wasn't going to bury me. This moment was going to bury them. The sand was finally brushed off me, but the sting of their laughter stayed glued to my skin like a second burn. That night, when we returned home, Olivia bragged about how funny it had been to watch me choke on sand. Dad nodded like she had accomplished something noble. Mom called it character training. They didn't notice the way I limped down the hall, my back raw and my hair still caked with grit. They didn't care. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, cheeks blistered red from the sun, eyes swollen from the humiliation. My chest tightened, not from the sand anymore, but from the rage bubbling under my skin. Their voices echoed in my skull. "Stay down where worms belong. Trash looks better buried." I pressed my fists against the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. They wanted me broken, crawling, forgotten. But that night, something inside me shifted. The next week, Olivia strutted around the house bragging about her new friends and how everyone adored her. Dad boasted to neighbors about how proud he was of his daughter. Of course, he meant her, not me. Mom sat with them, glowing as if Olivia's life were her own reflection. I was invisible until they needed something scrubbed, carried, or fixed. So I started watching. listening, collecting. I realized quickly that their perfect image was nothing but sand too, loose, unstable, waiting to collapse. Olivia wasn't adored. She was reckless. She skipped classes, partied with people who recorded her every move, and borrowed money from friends she never planned to repay. Dad wasn't a pillar of the community. He skimmed money from a small construction company he supervised, signing false receipts and threatening workers if they spoke up. Mom? She wasn't the gentle homemaker she pretended to be. She whispered poison about neighbors, spreading rumors that nearly tore marriages apart, and I had the texts to prove it. Each time they mocked me, I let my face fall into that mask of silence, but inside I was storing their cruelty like fuel. At night, while they slept, I scrolled through Olivia's phone when she left it charging in the kitchen, screenshotted messages about the drugs she'd experimented with and the debts she owed. I took pictures of Dad's forged invoices and the petty cash he slipped into his pocket. I copied Mom's venomous texts onto my own phone. Slowly, quietly, I built a mountain of evidence. But this wasn't just about exposure. It wasn't enough to show the world. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, powerless, smothered, desperate for breath. The chance came quicker than I expected. Olivia had been chosen to give a speech at her college banquet, a gathering where parents, professors, and community members would attend. Dad bragged about it for weeks, polishing his image as a proud father of success. Mom picked out Olivia's outfit like it was her own pageant. They wanted everyone to see their golden child shine. That's when I decided, if they had buried me in sand, then I would bury them in front of everyone they cared about, not with fists, not with begging, but with their own sins. I stayed up for nights editing the files into a simple, undeniable presentation. Olivia's screenshots, Dad's invoices, Mom's rumors, one after another, packaged neatly, ready to rip the mask off. The banquet had an AV system, and all I needed was 10 seconds alone with the technician. As I stared at the glowing laptop screen, my chest rose with a calm I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I wasn't the one trapped under the weight. I was the one holding the sand. The banquet hall gleamed with chandeliers, the kind of place my parents had always wanted to be seen in. Olivia floated in wearing a sequined gown, Dad grinning at her side like she was royalty, Mom adjusting her hair as if she were the one going on stage. Nobody looked at me except to sneer that I was lucky to even be allowed to tag along. The crowd applauded as Olivia's name was called. She strutted onto the stage, smiling wide, holding her note cards. Dad leaned back in his chair, smirking. Mom whispered to him, "Finally, something worth being proud of." And then the screen behind her flickered. At first, it showed Olivia's smiling face. Then it switched. Screenshots of her text messages, begging friends for money, talking about forgetting to pay people back, boasting about things she did at parties that left the room whispering. Gasps filled the air. Olivia froze, her note cards slipping from her hands. Before she could speak, the next slide appeared. Forged invoices with Dad's signature, fake receipts, stolen cash entries. The same neighbors and businessmen he'd conned were sitting in the audience, eyes widening, phones already out to take pictures. Dad stood up, shouting, "Turn that off right now!" But his voice cracked, desperation showing through the anger. Then came Mom's words, her text messages gossiping about families in the community, ugly rumors she had spread, lies that ruined friendships. The wives she betrayed were in the audience, their faces twisted in fury. Someone shouted, "You ruined my family!" The room erupted. Olivia dropped to her knees, begging for it to stop. Dad stormed toward the stage, but security held him back when reporters raised cameras. Mom shrieked, "This is a setup!" But no one listened. Their perfect mask had been ripped clean off. And then the final slide appeared, a photo of me, standing tall, free of the sand they once buried me in. A line under it read, "Trash learns to survive, but what happens when the trash tells the truth?" All eyes turned to them, not to me, but to them. Olivia sobbing, Dad shaking, Mom screaming at anyone who dared stare. The same people who once praised them now backed away, disgusted. Sponsors walked out. Professors whispered about expulsion. Business partners exchanged knowing glances. In less than 5 minutes, they had lost everything they'd mocked me with: their pride, their power, their precious image. When the chaos reached its peak, I stood up quietly, picked up my bag, and walked out. No screaming, no tears, no begging for them to understand, just calm footsteps echoing through the marble floor. "Behind me!" Olivia wailed. Dad cursed, and Mom's voice cracked as she shrieked, "She did this! She's the reason!" But nobody cared. The spotlight that had once buried me now burned them alive. For the first time in years, I breathed freely. They wanted me to stay down with the worms. Instead, I made sure the whole world watched them crawl. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?